Hey YouTube, what's going on? This is Cheeseboy628 here today, giving you week 4 of NPL Season 9. Today we are facing the Montreal Habsol, aka Aster J. So, let's talk about his team real quick. He's got Lando T, he's got Keldeo, Caesar Mega, Hooba Unbound, Alamomola, Jolteon, Whimsicott, Dragalge, Metagross, Kecleon, and Moltres. So, that's what we got here today, and let's see what's going on. So looking at his team, Lando's just a nice offensive threat, certainly. Keldeo is a little spooky too, but I do have Slowbro. I have Slowbro for that, and a couple other mons. I'm trying to think of what else. Metagross, certainly. Metagross and Keldeo. Slowbro has a good handle on. Other than that, Moltres is interesting. Could be a potential Defogger. Metagross potential Stealth Rocker. Whimsicott another Defogger. Lando another Defogger. Even Mega Caesar. Couldn't think of it. Mega Caesar is kind of scary for this team, so I have a couple of things that I want to do fire-wise. I do not bring my Mega Camel this time because ultimately, looking at a lot of his team, I didn't see a great matchup for it. But he's got that Hoopa Unbound, and you know what the best check in the world is to that thing? Frickin' Mandy, so I'm bringing Mandy. Other than that, I got a couple of unique sets I want to show you guys. So, I got this Slowbro, and I got Scald and Psyshock, that dual stab, and Psyshock for Keldeo and Dragalge, really. And then, can potentially take some hits. But yeah, so other than that, I got Toxic, because to handle Alamomola, because I have a bit of an issue with that on this team. And then I have Counter, and Counter is great. He has a couple of mons that just can freely U-turn out otherwise, that will think it's free to U-turn out, such as Lando and Caesar. And yeah, that's why I ultimately do have Counter there, can throw him off for a surprise. For Clefable, I originally had Max Spadef, but I ultimately don't need it. It's a super bulky mon that is able to take hits from offensive Whimsicott and Jolteon. So I was feeling that. In terms of Keldeo, I've got Slowbro, so I didn't need to worry about that. For Miss Mag, this set speed ties with Max Speed Jolly Lando, but I thought, wow, this thing does pretty well against his team actually. I do want to bring this. So this is the coverage I ultimately have. It doesn't get Signal Beam. I could have ran HP Fire, but ultimately didn't. Then we got Mandy. I chose Weak Armor for this. It's the only thing that would have done anything, barring, big pecs. But I was in it for the memes, I guess. I don't know what I'm thinking. But anyway, so yeah, it's mixed defenses. Has enough, power to take hits on both sides. That's really that. Zygarde's pretty unique. Minus speed because it's mixed attacking, kind of. I got 1,000 waves instead of 1,000 arrows, which means if I land that move on a mon, it stays trapped. And then the big idea there is to trap Mega Caesar or Alamomola, and then Toxic or HP Fire the respective mon. So I have a little attack investment, just do a decent amount of damage, where if it's a defensive Caesar that's just going to U-turn out after rocks and HP Fire and 1,000 waves, it's going to take a lot. That's the idea there. And then it's minus speed, but yeah, a defensive one, it's going to be able to outspeed. Then we got Weavile, and it actually doesn't get Icicle Crash and Natural Gift. You can't run both of them, so I'm like, okay, fine. I was debating between Pursuit and Icicle Crash and Ice Shard, and that kind of just spoke for me. So this is that. The other thing I could have ran was Sub, but ultimately chose not to. Watmel Berry with Natural Gift is a 100 base power fire move, so the idea is to take on Caesar should it think it's safe to play against me. So with that said, let's look what he brought. I was actually kind of surprised. In terms of matchup, I felt pretty even on this one. I felt comfortable being able to cover a decent amount of his stuff. I will say this weekend I came back from a Glee Club performance actually for the school. We were in this national conference. Had to travel from Ohio to Missouri, which was a 9-hour trip. And then, 18-hour both ways, which was pretty lame. Not gonna lie. Performance itself was cool, but wow, it took a lot of my time. And thus, Aster and I just battled at the last second for this week because I couldn't get back before then, and the Wi-Fi on the bus is sketchy. So, yeah, I was just making this team on the way back, so I didn't have a lot of time. What a theme here. I just don't have a lot of time to make these teams, to run these mocks, and we'll ultimately see how it goes, right? I still have some pretty quirky sets that I'm hoping to work. But yeah, he brings Mega Caesar. I could have brought Golem, but ultimately didn't. I didn't see Golem being really that beneficial. It was between that and Metagross, but yeah, they're just so bulky. As much as I could have a fire move, just wasn't working out for me. yeah, I choose my Clefable to be my rocker, obviously, versus a couple other choices I had. But yeah, then he has Lando, scary, certainly. But yeah, he has 2 U-turners, which means Slowbro's got a pretty good time ahead of it. Being able to Scald Moltres as well is great. Don't know what the Dragalge is going to be. I'm going to fear the worst being a Spexmon because I don't have a lot being able to handle that. And then Alomomola, it's just a bulky mon I'm going to have to start withering away. So with that said, let's go into the battle. He starts with Dragalge as I start with Zygarde, which is obviously a great matchup for me. I can just go for 1,000 waves and, you know, see what happens, unless he goes into Lando, which is still a decent play. But ultimately I get to go for 1,000 waves, which is awesome, and I get to go for Toxic. Now he goes for Toxic against me. He knows that I'm a trapping set, and so it makes sense for him to be able to do this. Now if I had Rest, that would have been pretty cool, but obviously that's just not the case. And he's able to go for Wish, and then he's able to switch out. So obviously it doesn't matter in terms of that with his coverage, because yeah, he, like, what I mean is Almamola's at full now, and, you know, Lando's at full, so that ain't no thing. But yeah, I thought Clefable was great there because even if he decides to Toxic me, you know, it's not going to hurt Clefable, and Alomomola is trapped in. So I get free rocks there, and that's great. Now I go into Slowbro, and here's the kicker. I got that counter, and if he's not choiced, he's going to be going for that U-turn right now because he's going to think that's free damage. Well, guess what? That's free damage times 2 against this Whimsicott, and that Whimsicott goes down, and that was the only thing that could have been a Z on his team, so I was really excited to have that gone. Then he took a minute, and then he went into Dragalge. And I'm like, well, shoot, if this thing is super offensive, I don't know what I'm going to do. So, kind of thinking back, actually, looking back at this, I don't know how well I was going to handle this Sludge Wave. Not very well at all. Psyshock would have done a lot to him too, though. So, yeah. At this point, I was thinking I could still use Slowbro, which is why I ultimately do switch out. And I go into Mandy. Because barring him being Specs, I can scout what kind of damage he is. And having this Sludge Wave do this much means that he is max attack modest. Or at least, you know, something very close to that. This sucks. I go for Roost, and on the second one, he poisons me. Which is super lame. It is super lame. It means I can't defog. It means I can't really stall him out. He does elect to go for Toxic Spikes there, which really tells me, man, I am going to go for defog here. But, yeah, it sucks, because now this is a losing battle. There's not really a lot I can do about this. My plan here is to put him in a case where he can go for T-Spikes or just something a little unsuspecting so then I can bring in Weavile for free. And that's what I do. Now here I have the option of going for Knock or for Pursuit, and I ultimately elect to go for Knock. It gets off the leftovers for Aloe, so if he needs that Mon for later, it's obviously going to loosen its recovery a lot. But Pursuit would have done about half to him, so that's also unfort because that thing is hard to handle. But not being Specs, it's not as scary. But he goes in Aloe here, as here I had a couple of opportunities to switch into different things, but I thought Mandy's the best. I just want to get these T-Spikes out of here or recover. Because I do have Heal Bell on my Clefable, and theoretically if everything goes well I can get these hazards out of here, can Heal Bell with Clefable, and we're having a good time. But yeah, I go for Roost here. I do have Foul Play on this set, and Foul Play does not take your attack stat into effect at all, not even from Intimidate. So it's just a base 95 move using Lando's own attack stat, and then with the Dark type stab. So that's important to note. I do get the weak armor boost, which is such a meme. God, it's not the worst in this situation because Lando apparently doesn't have a lot to hit me with. But theoretically, it could have been way worse. But now I'm faster than him, which is just hilarious. And I get to go for Foul Play, which does a ton of damage. It does a ton of damage. And here I am going to defog, and here he's going to put up his Rockos again. And here I'm just not sure if he's going to be able, if he's going to want to go for U-turn or what. But it seems that he's just going to want to keep going for rocks to keep them up. So I'm like, okay, fine. Let's just Foul Play, take him out. So I'm at half health. He goes into Caesar. Here's the thing. I knew as soon as he brought this in, I'm like, this man is probably going for game. This man is probably going for game here. But how he was going to do it, I wasn't certain. So I do just go for Roost here to get a little bit of recovery. I could have also just went for Defog to get rid of hazards, but I don't. And he has Curse, and I'm like, oh dear God, what the frick do I do at this point? This guy is Curse. This guy is Curse. You'll see what the chat does in a second. But yeah, he has Curse, so I'm like, great, this is not going to work out for me at all, barring me getting some kind of crit. So here I get off a little bit of damage, but as of now we know he has Curse. We don't know his other 2 moves, but one of them is probably BP. He goes for Roost, and so yep, we know 2 of his moves, and he's going to be able to take these hits. And again, barring me getting a crit, this is not the greatest situation. Ultimately, might have been better if I just kept trying to spam foul play, because you'll see here in a couple moves, I'm able to get a crit here with this HP Fire, if not the first one. I don't remember. No, it wasn't the first one, but man, could you imagine? Can you imagine if I crit him? If I crit him, then he wouldn't have been able to handle that. Yeah, that's of course obviously just going off of luck, but yeah, but here he knows he can just stall me out right now because he toxic me, so he can just literally toxic stall me. Obviously puts me in a really sucky position in terms of that, but yeah, I do that a couple of times. I'm not getting any luck here. Yeah, theoretically, I don't know. There just wasn't a lot I could have done in this situation. He has plenty of Roost to not, to stall me out. I go into Slowbro because, eventually I'm like, okay, we'll see what his last move is. Or, assuming he has BP, he has one other move, whether it's Bug Bite or Knockoff or whatever. But, I stay in here, I go for Scald. Wait a sec. Oh, that's why he was slower, because of the Curse. I was confused about this during the game. I was like, what is this? What is happening? I didn't realize. That could have been really good for me had I had Fire Blast on this for this set, but obviously I don't, and I don't get to burn him. So if I burned him, this could have really kept me in the game, but either way he has U-turn instead of Bug Bite, which means he is not here to stay. So be it. I don't know necessarily what his logic was with that versus Bug Bite or Knockoff, but so be it. So I go into Miss Mag here because I think this is my best coverage against this thing. He's going to get 2 KO no matter what kind of set he is, and this Flamethrower is enough to put me in a really low range for his BP later for Caesar. So that sucks. Ultimately, maybe should have thought about that a little bit when I was getting to this point, because theoretically, depending on his set, my Spec Shadow Ball could have killed him from that range. But all hindsight. So yeah, he goes into Aloe here. He elects to just sack that, I guess. And here I was kind of hoping that I would be able to get the hazards off, because what I'm thinking about at this point is if he ever brings in Caesar against my Weavile and Weavile's at full health, there's a 50% chance or so that I can live a BP if he's not offensive in any way. And then I could go for, Natural Gift and take him out. But not the case, because goes for Liquidation here, and that does 15, and plus the poison, which really sucks. Plus the poison means that I die. So theoretically, thinking back, really, kind of that Sludge Wave poison really just messed things up. It sucks. It's a 10% chance, and he got him the second time. Like, just really lame. That's a 19% chance for those checking at home. But yeah, unfortunately, the only bluff I had at this point was, staying in here, going for Ice Shard, because what I wanted to bluff was like, oh, if I had if I was banded, this would make the most sense, because then, wouldn't get the Flame Body, I'm pretty sure. And then, he would think, okay, this gives me a chance to set up with Caesar, one free turn. But, because I'm like, okay, he brings it in, this is my chance, should it work? And he just goes for BP immediately, and so I die. So, ultimately, his best play, I think. But, yeah, so that kind of just sucks. So I go for Heal Bell here. The reason is because if, Zygarde's poisoned, there's a chance, after a little bit of bulky recovery, I might be able to handle him, but, I don't know. Not the greatest situation, because Sludge Wave, he does outspeed me here. Forget how fast Dragalge is. I think it's base 44. Clefable's a little bit faster, though, so maybe he has some speed investment. But, yeah, I go into Zygarde here, and I have a couple of plays I can go for, but I ultimately go for 1,000 Waves, which doesn't hit him, of course. And then I just go for Toxic, and that obviously doesn't do anything crazy. But yeah, so what's kind of interesting about this set is, I'm going for E-Speed because, like, if he goes for Roost, it's kind of this meta thing of like, oh, if he goes for Roost, I'll go for 1,000 Waves, whatever. But no, he obviously doesn't like to do that. E-Speed doesn't do that much to him. I was considering putting a Rock-type move on this, but ultimately didn't. He goes for U-turn, which means he can just switch out and not lose any differential, and he can take me out with the BP. Should I have lived that? He probably still would have lived with Dragalge, so whatevs. But that's really the game. Yeah, that Caesar was definitely a mess. Mega Camel was my one real handle to that, should I have been able to do that. But amongst a number of reasons, I guess when you think about it, you know, I couldn't have defogged because I was poisoned. I would have had to sack like Zygarde or something to do that, then go for defog. Or, you know, maybe it was even a roll with the liquidation. The point is if I had the Rock Scone, Weavile theoretically could have had a chance. And then I could have potentially cleaned up with Miss Mag, but yeah, that poison was really lame. It was super lame, not gonna lie. So, you know, part of it being I just didn't have a lot of time to prep, but also like that was some lame hacks. I mean, there's nothing else to it. So, hope you guys enjoyed. I'm hoping we can get back in this, but man, there's just so much going on in the rest of my life, and you know, as much as I'm learning about these teams on the way, it's just a lot. There's just a lot going on. So, here's hoping. And we'll see you guys in the next one. Thank you all for watching. Like, comment, sub, and until later, peace.